Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Write Scripts. I'm Mike Crowdy, the head of writing at Arc Studio, which is the greatest screenwriting software in the entire world. There's a link to check out Arc Studio in the description if you want to use it to write your script, which I recommend. Today we're going to be doing 3 writing sprints where you can work on your script, and we'll be chatting in between the sprints about screenwriting, and I'll be answering your screenwriting questions, and you can talk to each other in the chat, and it's just going to be a great old conversation and day about screenwriting. Before we get into it, though, I want to know, where are you? What are you writing today? The usual questions, nothing tricky there. And then our sort of writer question or screenwriting question to get the juices going, and I'll chime in with my thoughts in just a minute. But how do you structure a scene? How do you structure your scenes? How do you think about the structure of a scene? Talk about this a little bit here and again on Let's Write Scripts. But oftentimes people talk about structuring the story, structuring the whole script, the 3-act structure, but like, what about the scene? So I just want to take a little moment to think about that. So get in the chat. Let me know where you are, what you're writing today, and yeah, how do you think about when scene structure? Let me know. Personally, I am in Los Angeles, California. It is a rainy day, overcast, drizzly, and I don't know. I was like at it pretty early today, and so my energy is flagging a little bit. So I'm gonna need some good vibes from everybody, I feel like. So if you got any energy to spare, send it my way, send it to each other, and hopefully we can get some great writing done. All right, so if you're feeling it, please like this video, subscribe, and turn notifications on. And you know what? You don't have to like it now. You can like it later if you want to decide whether you like it or not. Like if you're a connoisseur, if you're a tough critic, that's fine. I'm cool with that. But if you're not, give me a like right now. I appreciate that. And of course, during the second break, I'm going to show the sandwich of the week. What's the sandwich of the week, you ask? We're going to have to wait till the second break to find out. Okay, yeah. So I mentioned I'm in LA. It's rainy. I'm working on a feature rewrite. And how do I think about scene structure? So I think the easiest way to think about scene structure is to think about it having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And oftentimes I feel like we don't think of scenes that way. A scene is one unit. It's like together you get beginning, middle, and ends using scenes. But like, what about the scenes themselves? They also have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think there's a pretty easy way to kind of break it down. The beginning, the scene starts for a reason. What is the reason? The reason is the character wants something. That's what the point of the scene is. The character wants something. What that thing is, man, it could be anything. It could be something physical, like the nice little matcha green tea from Trader Joe's. This is not a sponsored video. I'm just drinking green tea. Or it could be something emotional. It could be a piece of information, you know, the detective trying to get a clue or something like that. There's just something that they want, something physical, emotional, psychological, whatever. There's something they want. It motivates the scene. There's a reason for it. And then kind of the heart of the scene, the meat of it, what we're actually seeing is them facing some kind of obstacle, right? Because if they want something and it's just right there, they get it right away, it's not really satisfying. There's like no drama there. There's no point there. So they face some kind of obstacle keeping them from getting what they want. And again, it could be a physical obstacle, like they're trying to steal something, so there's a safe they're trying to break, or it could be something emotional, you know, it doesn't really, or it could, and the obstacle could be like their own laziness, right? Or their own incompetence. There's just some sort of obstacle that they're dealing with. And how they deal with that obstacle it tells us something about them, right? How we deal with obstacles kind of reveals who we are as people and who our characters are. And then, so that's the middle, and then the end. And the end is they succeed or they fail, right? And they succeed, they get what they want, they didn't get what they want. And the thing that's different in a scene structure kind of versus like a whole movie, right, is that at the end of the movie, it ends and then there's a resolution. It's done. But in a scene, it's not done because there's another scene. There may be a lot more scenes. So you need to end your scene in such a way that the audience needs to know more. Something has been introduced, right? Some question or that needs to be answered, some twist that the audience wants to see explore, or some action that the audience wants to see what the reaction is going to be. But you end with something that's got a little launch pad that takes you to the next scene. So give your scene a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning, it starts for a reason, because they want something. The middle, they face an obstacle trying to get what they want. End, they get it or they don't get it. And that then creates a launch point to the next scene. All right, I'm going to get in the chat. Excited to see everybody here. Jim, nice shades. right? That's my graphic. Our graphic designer has a lot of fun putting together. I actually need to do like another batch of these, but he was just like, it's because in the Let's Write Scripts logo, it's like shining bright. And so he's like, that's why you're wearing shades. Although it's kind of funny because this is actually a special occasion. I realize. I think this is the first Let's Write script where I've ever worn a hat, and I could be wrong, but it's almost like required if you're a screenwriting guy online that you wear hats. Like if you look at screenwriting guys, they just wear hats all the time, like baseball caps. And so I got a call from the International Organization of Online Screenwriting Guys. They were very unhappy that I wasn't wearing a hat. So I'm wearing it right now. Jan Jones in London, glad you're here. Another sub-zero day in Northern Ontario, Don's Media. Okay, I'm not going to complain too much about my little drizzling rain outside. According to some articles, I've read Arc Studio is the best in the world, and I think some of those articles I haven't even written. So, you can take Cash's word for it. Ryan in the DMV, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia, because I'm a knowledgeable person, working on short stories, learning different types of writing. Ooh, exciting. Teji from rainy San Jose. I guess California's getting rain all over. I get to write some fun novel scenes today, so I'm excited and happy to be here as always. Awesome. We welcome creative writers of all stripes, of all kinds, whether you're writing a film or a TV show, which, screenwriting, obviously, this is called Let's Write Scripts. That's our focus. But if you're here to exercise your creative muscles, fantastic. More power to you. Barbara in LA, welcome. Juno, learning something new for a change and need for a feature. Sending energy, good vibes from Massachusetts. I'm feeling it. Coast to coast. That's awesome. Kelly, welcome from windy Kansas. Oh, that's like the wind coming across the cold plains. Like that's an intense wind. I can picture it in my head. Writing a draft of a drama feature, not feeling creative today. So let's see. I'm with you on this, Kelly, but just the more I'm here, I can feel the creativity just starting to seep up, like the water in my socks when I stepped in a puddle. The creativity is slowly moving up my body. Mimi from Australia, excited to learn some tips about scripts. Fantastic, Mimi. So glad you're here. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, and in the breaks later, we're going to talk about screenwriting. Rosie, welcome back from the UK. Pina from Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada. I'm sure it's a balmy. It's probably very nice in Winnipeg right now. Sid, who constantly is moving around the world, Oakland this week, LA next week, on the move as usual, in the home stretch of finally finishing a first full draft of this theater horror feature. Fantastic. Pamela in New Mexico. Speaking of New Mexico, I lived in Santa Fe. Maybe I've already said this, but apologies. But I moved to Santa Fe right after college, and I thought I was moving to the desert. And I have told this story before. I thought I was moving to the desert, but I didn't realize Santa Fe was a mile up elevation wise, and it snowed there. So that's me as a Southern California boy having to face winter. And this is something I used to do because my windshield used to freeze over and I didn't have an ice scraper. So I would heat up a pot of water on the stove and throw it on my windshield of my car. And everyone who is from a cold weather place that I told that to is horrified by that story because they're like, you're going to crack your windshield. My windshield never cracked, and it worked every time. So it may have been dumb, but it worked out well. Sid, in terms of scene structure, lately been thinking about what is the first image and what is the last image and how they represent the change that occurred in the scene. Oh, that's really cool. I love thinking about it visually. Yeah, because that's the thing about a scene, right? In the beginning and it'll end. Another way to just think about it is something's changed in there. And so screenwriting is a visual medium. It's going to be translated to the screen. So how do we visually see some sort of change across the scene? That's really cool. I like that. Cash in Texas writing a feature. Don't know. I put much thought into scene structure. Should probably start doing that. You should. I agree. I'm also working on a blog post about this that will be in the ARC email going out on Monday. Look at this cross-Canadian connection. I love it. Fantastic. Juno, I struggle creating obstacles that aren't too easy, boring, and aren't impossible. I have no idea how the character gets out of it. Oh, yeah, that's the thing. So your character wants something. They're facing an obstacle toward it. But what is the obstacle? I think one, you're going to vary it between scenes, right? In some scenes, in the climax, whatever, it's going to be big, right? The big thing. Other things, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing. It can vary in intensity across the scenes. You don't want it to be the exact same thing every time, right? That's kind of with the rhythm. Sometimes it'll be a small obstacle. Sometimes it'll be a big obstacle. I think it's okay to have, I think it's actually good to have a variety in those obstacles. But no, that's an interesting point. Denise in Nashville, free writing today. Tozy from Argentina. Yes, I see you have a hat in that photo. So you're on the screenwriting guy hat train right there here. Andy, I don't wear a hat. It restricts blood to my brain. If I start faltering halfway through, then Andy, I might have to take my hat off, and you guys are going to see my hat here. There's a little preview of it. Rosie, that's it. Hats is what we all, because hats keep the ideas from escaping. They say it's to keep warmth from it escaping, but it's actually it keeps the creativity in your head where you can use it. Welcome, Neffy from Seaside. Your cats are so bored. Yeah, my dog was going crazy earlier. Kelly, should a sequence have a beginning, a middle, and end? So this is a kind of an interesting thing. A lot of times when we talk about units of screenwriting or units of story, there's no firm lines, right? Because like a scene is literally anytime you have a scene heading, and like a scene can be one sentence, right? Like, or two sentences, and then you have the next scene heading. So like in that two sentences, are you going to have a beginning, a middle, and an end? No. Sometimes like it might actually be a few scene headings. So you can think of it, sometimes it might be in a single scene. Sometimes it might be across from a sequence, across a whole sequence. Really, it's just kind of like you're building the big arc out of little arcs, right? So that little arc might be exactly one scene. It might be a couple scenes, but you just want a bit of, you don't want like too long for that little arc, right? Does that make sense? You have little arc, there might be one scene, it might be a couple scenes, but in general, I'm just saying scene, but sometimes technically it might be a structure. Welcome back from South Dakota, Sad Hope. Movie Rulers by Alex, aspiring writer trying to find his first screenplay for having 5 ideas written down on paper, just trying to figure out which one to focus on and finish them. Couple of ideas if you're trying to figure out which one are you most excited about, which one can you not stop thinking about, which one are the ideas just coming by, and if everything's tied, which one do you think has the best ending, which is something that John August, I can't claim credit for that last one. I heard him say once, which is a really good piece of advice. Pacific Northwest, this person knows all about rainy gray days. Andy in London also knows everything about rainy gray days. Going through an outline for my sci-fi feature script right now. Awesome. Okay, so Pamela, love for Santa Fe. Yeah, Santa Fe was really cool. I enjoyed living there. Nick from New Jersey, working on a sketch comedy script for an upcoming Variety late night style show. Fantastic. Good luck with that. Is that live or is it going to be recorded? Either way, that sounds really cool. All right. Okay. Kelly, I may be in Kansas, but I'm born in California, and people are laughing at me here. Oh, that's a tough cultural move here. Tiffany from London, welcome back. Starting a new graphic novel project, mostly visual, but I need to get a to Z plot written down too. So glad you're here. All right. And the Bay Area, California here. This is great. And then Mimi's looking to join the Hat Club. You know what the great thing about the Hat Club is? It's very easy to join. You just put a hat on and you're in the Hat Club. And you don't always have to be in the Hat Club. It's it's ephemeral, I think is the word that I'm going for. All right. I'm loving it. I'm like already feeling better than when I started. I'm glad you guys are here. I'm feeling the energy. So I think we should take this energy and we should channel it into our first writing sprint. So if you're new, the way we do this is we do 3 writing sprints. We do a 15-minute writing sprint, then we take a break, a 25-minute writing sprint, take a break, and then at the end, usually around a 20, right? It's technically a 25, but I usually talk too much, so it's a 20-minute writing sprint. And during that writing sprint, you work on whatever project you came to work in. We're all working on our own scripts or projects. That's why I love reading what you guys are all working on. So I'm going to play some music. I'm going to put a timer up on the screen, and we are going to reconnect after the timer goes off, and we'll chat. And if you have questions, we'll talk about it then. So again, if you're struggling with anything, your screenwriting questions, we'll get to it in the next break. Oh, Kaz, welcome also. Man, we got a lot of Canadians here today. There's just like something going on right now. Okay, here we go now. I'm going to play some music. And I'm going to put the timer up on the screen and I'm going to catch you guys on the other side. We'll chat some more. So open up your document, click your pen, whatever it is, stretch your back, settle in. And the 15-minute writing sprint, you know what? It's like pretty chill. It's like a warm up. So don't stress out too much. Sometimes you just like reading back over what you were doing last time, whatever it is, just like getting in the zone. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Let your mind be free. And and we'll check back in 15 minutes. All right, guys, here we go. Let's write. Sorry, guys. Just trying to finish the sentence. As that time expired. All right, there we go. We did one. I mean, we did it. Like, no one can say we didn't do it because we just did it. That's our first writing sprint. The 15-minute writing sprint. Is it the shortest writing sprint? Yes. But it's also maybe the most important one because it means we're here. It means we're writing. It means we're writing scripts. It's great. Or books or whatever you're writing. If you joined during that sprint, welcome. This is Let's Write Script. We're doing 3 writing sprints. We're talking about screenwriting in between. How did that sprint go? Were the muses with you? Are we blessed with their presence today? Are you dealing with any issues in your script? Any questions you have? Get in the chat. Let me know. That was pretty good for me. I started with a little free writing and I kind of got into the script and got a little bit done. I feel like I've set myself up maybe for success in the next writing sprint, which is like the 25-minute writing sprint. Okay, so some questions kind of before we get into this. Juno had there's like a 3-part question. So we're going to get through all this. Okay. I know what I want to happen in the internal story of how my character changes, but I struggle to come up with the external scenarios that will result in that change. I need to get away from vague story beats, realizing things, and toward more concrete ones, action, reaction. I love these parentheses, these parentheticals. I also need to stop writing stories where change just happens gradually. Boring. Any good questions to ask myself to brainstorm what actually happens in this story? Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest thing that just springs to mind, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to approach this, right? So I'm not going to say like this is the one approach, but give them an external goal, right? Give them something that they want that's not the internal thing, right? Because it seems like you have that thing where you have the internal story of how they change, but like give them something that they want in the world. So like the example I use, because it's like simple to understand, is like a sports high school quarterback, right? Football quarterback. And he wants to win the state championship. It's like simple, right? That's an external goal. Why does he want to win that championship? Because he like wants to win the love and approval of his father. And the way he can do that is through winning the championship. And of course, he realizes that like he didn't need that, or he shouldn't have to earn it, or there's some sort of thing. But like it needs to have this sort of external thing. I mean, not always, but like usually you need to have this external thing. So give them something in their life that they want that sort of like deals with that issue. And it should be something that's hard. Give them something difficult generally that they want in order to get there. So just, I would think about that. Like what do they want? Like what's the problem in their life and like, how would they change that? Yeah. Jennifer, what's my favorite genre to write? Ooh, that's a good question. So when I first started out, I like wanted to be a comedy writer. Someone was mentioning sketch comedy in here. Nick live sketch. Yeah, I did some like sketch comedy in college, and like the first script I ever wrote was a spec script, like a sample episode of The Office. And I did a spec script of like, and I wrote some pilots that were comedies, that were sitcoms. And then I sort of moved towards like dark comedy, drama, thriller kind of stuff. So I would say a lot of what I do is sort of in the thriller and dark comedy worlds. And then it sort of branched from there. So like I just wrote a pilot that's like a horror, and it's sort of like more on the horror end of that. The feature I'm writing right now is more of like a thriller kind of end of that, but drama. Yeah, so I'm a little genre agnostic. Like I'm not like very good at branding myself. Like I'm the guy who writes uplifting family stories or something like that. But I like kind of putting good people or like people in extreme scenarios kind of. And I love finding comedy in awkwardness and stressful situations. I think. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit all over the place, but that's kind of what I like to do. Alex, are y'all using paper or the computer? Right. So I'm using the computer. I'm writing in Arc Studio. I love though to write on a legal pad sometimes. Like it just like it switches it up in the brain sometimes, or like writing on index cards and putting them up. You know, there's like the digital index cards in Arc Studio, which are great, but sometimes I'll see something on a wall. Sometimes I just want to write by hand. I think you got to like vary it up. You got to vary it up. Donis Media, what's a good way to format a slug line to reflect that the scene is taking place through the view of a news broadcast with the car underneath, but happening in real time, not off a screen? The easiest thing to do in the slug line is just like in parentheses or a dash, just for like news broadcast. And it's just like very simple, I would say. But if you Google that, you'll also find different screenwriting examples of it. And there's different ways of going about it. All right, cool. Let's see here. First sprint went well for Barbara, working on another page one script. Minoru also. Nisi, hey, welcome. Cash, first went kind of slow, just like my internet. Man, that's all right. I have so many ideas in my head to write down 5 on paper and start 5, but never finish one. How do I focus on just 1 or 2? I mean, I kind of talked about this earlier, but like basically choose one. And the 3 ways to think about that again are, which one can you just not stop thinking about? That you're most excited about? Which one are you just like generating material for that sticks with you? And in all things equal, which one do you have the best ending for? But there isn't like a secret to this. Like you just have to do it. Like it takes self-discipline to do it. And yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to sit down and do it. There'll always be a distraction. And the thing is, here's the thing, and I think this goes to the core of your question. The thing you're not writing is always going to be more attractive than the one you're writing, because the one you're writing is hard because you're actually dealing with it. You're like dealing with the issues of the story and the character and the structure and the scenes and all of that stuff. And it's hard. And so that's idea 1. And idea 2 is this perfect, beautiful little thing over here that's just going to be so easy. It's literally the grass is greener on the other side. And that's always going to be it. So you can't be seduced by that idea that, hey, I'm going to switch to this idea, because it's a mirage. Once you get to it, it's not easier, actually. And then idea 3 is going to look easier, or idea 1 back again. So you basically just have to stick with one and decide you are going to do that, and like realize that hopping to another idea in the short term seems like a relief. Oh, I can just do that one. But in the long term, you're going to be left with nothing, because you're not going to finish any of them. You're just going to hop around. So choose one, stick with it, and give it a real go. And again, though, it may not work out. Like sometimes I have scripts that I've abandoned, but like you really have to give it a go to find that out. Yeah, so yeah, you just got to choose one. Pamela, went great for her sprint. I like to develop my story by writing mostly by hand at first for a computer doc. I worry about losing my notes though. When is it better to move into a computer doc? Whenever you want to. There's not like an answer for that. I mean, there are, I think, Quentin Tarantino, I think he writes his scripts by hand entirely. I mean, people like do what works for you. There's a thing, and I totally get this tendency where people want to know what different writers' processes are. And like that can be helpful. You can pick and choose for different things, but really the best writing process is the one that works for you. If you're afraid of losing your notes though, I would take a photo of them. Take your phone and take a photo of each handwritten page, maybe when you're done with it or at the end of the writing session. That way you know you're always going to have it. And yeah, I would do that. Oh, getting dangerously close to finishing my pilot script. These sessions are really helping. Oh, that makes me so happy. That's what we're here for. So really, like that's the best thing. That's the best news, man. What is the difference in transitions like fade in, dissolve to, cut to, match cut to, jump cut to? There must be for how we want the scenes to end, but what is the significance or impact of each? Oh, this is great. I actually did write a blog post about this recently. So go to arcstudio.com/blog, and there's something in there about scene transitions. So a lot of those, usually you don't need anything. The default is you don't need to have any scene transition between your scenes. If another scene heading, it's like implied that you're cutting to that next scene. Jump cut, you don't need that. So the ones I really only use, I don't fade in, I don't dissolve to. I mean, a lot of these are more like editing things. I can do a match cut occasionally. So a match cut basically means you're cutting from something to a similar thing. So like the famous one is the opening of 2001: Space Odyssey, where it's like the bone to the spaceship and they're similar. Or like you're cutting from someone's face to another person's face, or like a pineapple or like a watermelon with a face drawn on it or some sort of for effect. Or you're oftentimes you're doing, there's like smash cut too, which is where you want like a hard cut kind of between something. But generally, I'll use match cut to maybe once a script. I'll use smash cut to, I mean, maybe once or twice a script, or never, 0 to once a script. Flashback to I'll use if there's a flashback, and then so flashback to as a transition, then back to as a transition. The one time I'll use cut to is if I'm kind of changing POVs. So let's say you have a character Annie, and we've been with Annie. We've been following Annie for a few scenes. And in the next scene, we're going to Pamela in a different location, and we're be following Pamela for scenes. In between the Annie scene and the Pamela scene, I'll use a cut to sometimes, just so the reader kind of understands that there's a break happening here. Because you're reading a bunch of scenes in a row where it's like Annie's doing this, Annie's doing this, Annie's doing this, Pamela's doing this. It just takes a moment kind of for the brain to be like, wait, we're not with Annie anymore. And a cut to can just sort of show a little bit that there's a POV. It just kind of gives a break between the sections. I write a little bit more on the blog post, but that's kind of an overview of how I think of scene transitions. Good for a sprint. In my project, the antagonist is written in a more serious lens, while the protagonist is written in a comedy sense. Any advice? I mean, that's fine. Like, that isn't inherently a problem. Like, I'm now just picturing a script where like the villain's very serious, the antagonist is very serious, but the protagonist is just sort of like a bumbling fool, and it just drives the antagonist crazy that this bumbling fool is like foiling their plots and everything. Like, so, but that's kind of for a goofy comedy. So it sort of depends on like what the tone of your script is. I would just say I don't think that's inherently a problem. It may be a problem depending on kind of what you're trying to write. But I would say basically like, yeah, have a reaction to that. How does the antagonist sort of feel about the comedic protagonist, or how does what's it causing? Like, you can use it. You can kind of lean into it. Like, it will cause more things potentially for your story. That's broad advice because like tone is difficult. So I can't kind of tell you exactly, but that's one way of thinking about that. That quarterback example I gave resonated. My antagonist wants to be a stellar student, but he just does it for his mom. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting, right? And then you kind of unpack why, like why does he just want to do it for his mom? And what does he learn about that? That's cool. I love it. Barbara, first sprint went remarkably well. Awesome. Fantastic. I love it. A lot of stuff here. Transitions. Great. Already talked about that. Glad. Jennifer, how do you write a backdrop story when needed? Flashback is a good idea. What do you mean by backdrop story? I'm not 100% sure what you mean. If you give me a little more clarity on that, I might be able to answer that. Fantastic. So I just totally feel what I was saying about the script you're not working on is going to be always more. Yeah, exactly. Transitions, usually you don't use them. How do you stop writing a climax scene when you get secondhand embarrassment? How do you start writing one? I mean, if you're feeling an emotional reaction to the thing you're writing, oftentimes that's fantastic. So, if I don't do it. I don't have great advice for that, but I will just say in general, if you're like if you're just writing an awkward scene, for instance, and you're just feeling so awkward even writing it, I think that's fantastic. I think that could be great on the page here. This is another idea of a match cut. The match from the Desert Sun. The match, literally, it's a match, but it is a match cut from the match to the Desert Sun in Lawrence, Arabia. Famous match cut here. All right, let's do a little bit, and then we got to move on. But I love everyone so active today. My opening scene is a flashback in my head and it merges into a video playing in the present day. How can I describe that? I mean, there's a lot of different ways. I don't have a great answer for this one. Sometimes when I want to get an answer, it seems snarky, but like it's not. I just mean like kind of write it. Like write it. I mean, I did something like this in the pilot that I just wrote, and it's about an athlete, and it was sort of like contrasting him as a rookie to him as this like over the hill veteran. And I like did it in some sense where stylistically they were different, so you can do a thing like where I wrote it kind of where it was like old fuzzy sports footage kind of, and then cutting to like kind of crisp modern HD. So you can sort of do some sort of stylistic change between the two, like old VHS footage is like kind of a one that's been a classic. We're getting further and further away from the VHS footage era. So I don't know how the timeline in your thing works, if that works for it. But like that's one example where we're sort of seeing old home video grainy style, and then it just kind of like dissolves to it. I would just try different things. But for that kind of a start, you just kind of have to play around with it. But again, go with clarity and like engagement for the reader. Whatever kind of makes sense to you is a good way to do it. All right. Okay. Man, fantastic. This is a good question. And then we're going to move on, and we actually will write again. Characters in my script are actors rehearsing a play. When they start speaking as their play characters, I've been indicating that in parentheses. Do you think that's the clearest? Yeah, I mean, you could have like, Jamie as Mercutio or whatever, and then I think that's probably a simple way to do it, All right, cool. I'm loving it. Good energy here. Apologies if I skipped over anybody, but there was just a lot happening in the chat today, and I think it's all good stuff. All right, so let's write more, right? That's what we're here to do. I'm talking too much. We're going to do the 25-minute sprint. So I'm going to play some more music, put the 25-minute timer up on the screen. When we come back, we'll talk more, we'll answer more questions if you have any. We'll show the sandwich of the week, and it's gonna be great. So, all right, yes, and I agree. Some great questions today. So kudos to all of you for having good questions. All right, play some music. 25 minutes on the clock. Let's do some writing. Catch you all the other side. All right, that is the end of the second writing sprint, the 25-minute writing sprint, the heart of the writing sprints, the best writing sprint, the writing sprint that happens in the middle. Act 2 of the writing sprints. How'd that go for you guys? First off, I want to welcome everyone who joined, Dystopia, Utopia, Autumn, who's a new screenwriter. So glad you're here. I've seen you at something before, right? I remember your username. Was it Let's Write Books? Was it Let's Write Script? Was it something else? I don't know, but I'm glad you're here. How did that sprint go? Did the muses show up? Did they abandon you? I want to know. Get in the chat. Any questions arise? A lot of stuff to talk about in the chat. People are asking questions here. All right, Jennifer was asking, heard a lot of directors who don't like to put transitions in the script. Is that true? Yeah, and then James kind of had a comment about this, which I think has some good stuff. Generally, the technical stuff should be avoided in screenplays unless you've already been drafted hired to write the script. It's generally a distraction, dimension, angles, transitions. Yeah, I mean, there's not a hard and fast rule. In moderation, you can use some of these things. I like to think in terms of like, I feel like, Jennifer, kind of in your question, we were talking about transitions. You're also kind of touching on the other thing, which is like angle, like shots, like the specific camera shots in the script, which annoys directors, which I wrote about last week, I think, on the blog. Yeah, I did. So you can check that out. Basically, instead of like saying angle on or close up, I mean, sometimes there's a use for that, but generally, like, there's like an implicit eye. Like if you just write, what's going to happen, like it's sort of implied what's on the screen. For instance, you can say like close up on a character's bloody nose or something like that. Or you can just kind of say like blood trickles from the nose. And that's like engaging. And like, what are you picturing? You're picturing a close up of the nose. So you just sort of like, I like to think of the eye or the imagination kind of, but I think of it as the eye of the reader, right? Like that's the camera. Whatever image you're telling them to see, they're seeing. So that's kind of how I like to think about it, is that you're just sort of describing what the story is, but you just sort of say what it is, like you can say like a character walks down a hallway glancing in the doors, or you can be like tracking shot as we follow them. Like you don't necessarily need to say that. It's just sort of implied. And then another question Jennifer had was, okay, so this is about flashbacks you were talking about. So you're writing a script. This was in here somewhere. It was like a whodunit, right? And so you need these flashbacks, and you're getting criticism from some of your readers on the flashbacks. So the thing about flashbacks is that they need to, and this is kind of counterintuitive, but like even though you're moving back in time, they need to move the story forward. The problem with flashbacks sometimes is like you're getting back, like you're getting backstory. You're like, but wait, you need to know this. Wait, we needed that. And then the reader feels like, oh, we're going backwards. So like you need to try to use flashbacks in a way that it feels like new information that propels the story forward, if that makes sense. So it's not great just to kind of use them for context oftentimes, because that can feel slow. And that might be what you're getting feedback on. So try to use the flashbacks. Think about like Knives Out, right? How like there's tons of flashbacks in Knives Out, but like every time they use one, it's giving us some information that's actually propelling the story forward. So even though we're moving back in time, the story's moving forward. So you can have flashbacks, but you just need to try to use them so that the story is still moving forward. And Dystopia, what do you mean by, has anyone done a retelling screenwriting? Not sure what you mean by that. Let me know a little more detail, and maybe we can answer that question. Cash, this is a hard question. So I started writing the script well before I knew what Pulp Fiction was. Now I feel like people may think it's a ripoff. How do I make sure to bring something original to the table? I mean, again, I don't have an answer that doesn't sound trite here. It's bring something original to the table. Find a different way to tell the story. Tell a different story. If it's too similar, it's too similar. I mean, that's just like the sad fact. If it's too similar, there's not really anything you can do about it except try something different. But yeah, I mean, it kind of stinks. I mean, I've had that thing happen where I've like been working on something. I'm like, oh, it's like this other thing. So either try to take it in a new direction, find some new layer to it. But I would also say, because Cash, you've done 5-page Mondays, which is, by the way, if you're an Arc Studio user, you can, in the community forum, you can post 5 pages of your script every Monday. And so I've read some of this. I will also say that the setup, it's like putting it in a warehouse like that, the way you've done it, that's just very similar to Reservoir Dogs. Put it in a different location. I mean, honestly, maybe that'll help unlock something new. Don't put it in a warehouse. Put it somewhere else, and maybe it'll start moving it in a fresh direction. Kaz, any tips how I can write a story about me with imagination, being a happy place in the future, having the life I envision for myself? I'm used to writing and reflecting on my past experiences. So, yeah, I mean, screenwriting is all a way about like finding a way to externalize in internal journeys, right? So have a character who could be a thinly veiled version of yourself who wants something, and then have them try to get it, right? And what's the journey to trying to get it? What kind of obstacles does that character face along the way? What are the downs before you get to the happy ending? It sounds like you want a story with a happy ending. Oftentimes our happy ending, things get worse and then they get better. So what does that character want? What are the struggles along the way? And how do they ultimately succeed? That's just kind of the basic shape probably of what you might be working with. All right. There's another question about how do you, Jennifer had this question. So if you're talking about the @ for the comments in Arc Studio, yeah, in a comment, if you're trying to @ like a collaborator, in the comment, you just do @ and then start typing their name and it'll pop up and you just click on it and then they'll get a notification that you've commented them. But they need to be a collaborator on your script. So you need to have added them as a collaborator on the script. All right. Here we go. Trying to catch up. Sorry. I was like looking through some of the old stuff here. And I scrolled back way too far. Where was I? Okay. Okay, dystopia. I might redo an idea for a script. I don't know if I'm retelling. If a retelling for a script, I might redo an idea. So basically you're saying this is like something you've already written in a different form and now you're trying to do it in a script? If that's what you're saying, I'm gonna answer that question. Sorry if that's not exactly. That's totally fine. You just sort of need to, I don't know, because I don't know how you originally did this. Like this is a novel you wrote or a short story or anything. Definitely you can. One of the tricks though is, let's say like this was a novel or a short story or something that you were working on and now you want to do it as a screenplay. Recognize that it's a different medium. Try to think about like oftentimes what like the core of it was. But one of the differences, obviously, if you work on as a book, is that like you don't have the internal space that you can have in a novel where you're just like with the character's thoughts. So part of the trick is finding ways to like externalize, find ways to visually show through their actions and stuff, like what would be happening internally. Okay, cool. Denise, went pretty well for her. Awesome. Glad, so happy. What's your favorite practice for rewrites? Do you do story first, then characters, or killing darlings? Oh man, I'm so sloppy on my rewrites. Like my process is all over the place. Man, we are running so late. I'm sorry, guys. We did a lot of talking today, which is really cool. Answering a lot of questions. But like usually this is what we'd already be doing the third writing sprint. So apologies if you're like, why are we not writing? You can totally just mute me and write if you want. Use this time how you want to do it. My favorite practice for rewrites. I try to break it down into manageable tasks, right? So like I try to figure out, first thing, big things first, right? Story and characters first. And for me, they're intertwined. You can't really, because the story is about the characters. The characters are the story. But I try to just figure out that do I know this character's journey? Do I know the shape of this script? Is this, and then I kind of work on those big things. And then I go to the scene level things generally, and like the dialogue and the action and the tightening and stuff like that. So start big, move to the small things. Also, I like to sometimes write out a list of all the things that I want to change. That way it's like you're just checking them off, because sometimes rewrites can feel overwhelming. Like there's different parts, so many different things you want to work on. So just like writing a list of the things you want to change. You can also, if you want, focus on different things in a revision. Like you don't have to work on everything every revision, right? Like you can do a revision where you're working on the big stuff, and then another revision where you're working on the smaller stuff. Andy managed to crack a structural idea stuck on during the session. Fantastic. All right. Cash is doing some major changes based on 5-page Monday. So again, yeah, 5-page Monday is fantastic if you want to get feedback on your script. And if you're waiting to reveal something close in a certain part, then exposing the whole scene to the audience for revealing effects. If you are waiting to reveal something close in a certain part, then exposing the whole scene to the audience. Oh, gotcha. Sorry. Sometimes with like the time change, you're like, someone will be writing a comment about something and then I won't get to it later. So close on and then exposing. Yeah. You can do that. Also, sometimes you can just say like, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, reveal, and then use reveal to kind of show like what the thing is. What's my favorite movie? I don't really have one. It changes all the time depending on the mood. I'm just gonna say Parasite quickly because that's a movie I love. But that's a fantastic. All right. Great. Okay. Trying to just like catch up about all things. Ooh, Rosie has a suggestion for not being like a Quentin Tarantino. Have it about women. That's great. Great. Sid, as a viewer, I can sometimes feel like a flashback is insulting my intelligence if it's giving the information is already very implied by what's happening in the present. I can figure it out. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to be like think carefully about like what is the flashback for? What is it needing to be? And like really, there should just, in my mind, maybe just one crucial thing in that flashback. And like that's because it's like we were talking about scene structure earlier. Like, what's this scene about? What's this flashback about? Give it like this one thing. It's about this, and then it like launches us forward. Okay, a retelling. No, I'm thinking of retelling two characters like Peter Pan and Snow White. Yeah, I mean, you can totally do that. I mean, people have been doing Peter Pan and Snow White, like classic fairy tales for as long as, time imagined. I mean, like think about how many times Grimm's fairy tales have been done in different things and how many movies have been done about it. You can totally do it. And like, if they're old, obviously that's public domain too. Just like, don't base it on like Disney's version of these things because then you won't be able to make it or sell it because Disney owns that. So like, unless it's just for fun. If it's just for fun, if it's just for you, you can write whatever you want. But if you're going to try to like sell it, then you don't want to like base it on the Disney version of it. Like, if that makes sense, you don't want to base it on copyrighted material because you don't own the rights to it, and then you don't really control its destiny. How do you get rid of blue text in Arc Studios? You turn off changes, the toggle changes in the top right, and you turn it off, and it goes away. And if you have it on, you could also just like ignore the changes. If you click on the changes menu right there. All right, cool. Well, man, we are already like at the end already, and we haven't done the third writing sprint, but we're going to do a little bit more. I haven't even done the sandwich of the week. Man, look at this. You guys have so many questions today. That's fantastic. All right, here we go. The sandwich of the week is basically, if you're wondering what it is, I just show the best looking sandwich that I made that week. And I put a lot of thought into it. And here we go. This is Sandwich by Micah Craddy. I signed this one because it's a work of art, and you should sign your work of arts. And this just like, I just want to say, look at the baguette here. Like, that's just, I mean, a beautiful, just like that bread, like just the ridges on it. It's just like fantastic. We got avocado. We got the pink of the pickled onions, the green of the avocado, and the lettuce. We got a little stone ground mustard in there, a little peak of cheddar, some tomato. This is really one. I mean, it's a baguette. I don't usually do baguette sandwiches. But I think I also drizzled some olive oil in there too, which was fantastic. And that is just like, this was one good baguette. The bread, it starts with the bread. Like, that's the key. So here we go. The sandwich of the week. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it doesn't make you too hungry. I hope it makes you hungry for writing somehow. But there you go. All right. Quick announcements. Let's Write Scripts next Wednesday. Same time, same place. There's a link to RSVP in the description below. If you write books, as some of you do, you can join me on Mondays at 10 a.m. for Let's Write Books. This is Let's Write Scripts, and on Monday I do Let's Write Books. And on this upcoming Monday, we are working on better scenes, writing scenes. So in Let's Write Books, we actually have more themed episodes where I like do free writes and prompts and stuff about specific things. So you can also RSVP for that. There's a link below, and that's brought to you by ButterDocs, which is our other writing app. Arc Studio is our screenwriting app, and ButterDocs is our app for writing fiction. So check that out. And then, oh my gosh, we're already at like 2:30. All right, we're gonna do one more sprint here. But I think we're just gonna do the 15-minute sprint again, just because like we are running so late. Because we've just had such great discussion about screenwriting. Sorry, I just love Tiffany's comment on the sandwich. It is chompable. It was chompable, and it was chomped. All right. If you have to leave during this sprint, thank you so much for coming. Say farewell. Let me know how your writing went today. I hope to see you next week. And if you stick around for 15 more minutes, I will say final farewells on the other side. But I'm going to play music, 15 minutes on the clock. Let's just try to close out strong. Give your scripts just this last little scrap of energy and attention that you have, and then catch you on the other side. But here we go. Now we do this one. Sorry, guys. I was really in that scene. I have no idea. Hopefully, the timer just ended right now. But I love when it's going well and you don't really notice that the timer has gone down. Been writing a scene I've been looking forward to for a while. Anyways, that was it. That was our last writing sprint. This was Let's Write Scripts. It happens every Wednesday. If you liked it, great news. You can come back next week. If you didn't like it, next week will be better. Come back next week. You can RSVP in the link below or just show up next week at 1 p.m. Thank you all so much for being here. I had a great time. Like I said, I was feeling kind of like low energy at the beginning and like just got like revved up and like excited to write the script. I hope you all have a great week. I hope you do some more writing. I hope you don't just write here. I hope this is just like the start of your writing practice. Maybe it can help you build a routine. Anyways, that is it for me. It's already 2:45. We've been here a long time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be kind to yourselves and happy writing, everybody. All right. See you next week. And thank you so much for the first timers for joining and the second timers and the third timers. No one ever mentions the third timers, but you're almost a regular. So come back and you'll be a regular. All right, guys. See ya.